Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Zero Project Conference 2022. My name is Robin Timweiss. I'm the manager of the public sector, and I welcome you to our fantastic global session, which really features interesting good practices which have enabled the next generation of civil servants to become disability inclusion ready. We will hear from projects from Chile, Brazil, and Israel, and also we'll have lessons learned and shared from Belgium in this session. As mentioned, we will be global, which will also mean that the languages spoken in this session will not only be English, but also Portuguese, thanks to our representative from the city of Sao Paulo. With that being said, I will ensure and try to ensure that everyone stays in their time, not because I'm mean, because I want to make sure that everyone can share their project and their insights in this session. I would like to also briefly visually describe myself for those who can perhaps hear me but not see me. I'm a white male in his early 30s with short cropped hair, a receding hairline. That's what age does to you. I have a cane in my right hand due to a recent hand injury. I'm wearing a shirt, a blue-white striped dress shirt and a black tie, and I'm smiling because I'm very happy about the speakers we have lined up for today. And I would ask all of our speakers to also self-describe themselves as they speak. We will be here for approximately 50 to 55 minutes in this session. We'll be short, sweet, and compact, and we'll also be taking questions from the audience who hopefully have questions on the mind already, and if not, they will definitely develop some throughout the session. And without further ado, I really would like to take this opportunity and to thank our chair of this session, who unfortunately is not with us in person here at the United Nations in Vienna, but he is in heart and spirit with us. And we really thank Ambassador Yehuda Yaakov, the Senior Director for Social Impact Policy from the Israeli Foreign Ministry. And I spoke with him recently, and I think his assessment is right, that he perhaps is the single individual in the diplomatic world who has the title Social Impact in his job title. So it's a really fascinating position which allows him to have a unique insight into the conversations we have today. So without further ado, what I would like to do is to bring in Yehuda Yaakov live from Israel for an opening impulse statement of this session.
Thank you very much, Robin, and thank you to the Zero Project for inviting me. It's really an honor. Shalom from Israel, and welcome to my home. Self-describe myself. I'm a bit older than you, Robin, but I have a full head of hair. Don't be jealous.
What is your secret, Yehuda? You must share this with me later on.
Oh, I'll tell you, I got into an argument with my barber about, he didn't want to put on a mask, and I insisted. So I decided not to get a haircut for the last 2 months. But I will. I have glasses, round rim glasses, and I'm wearing a purplish button-down shirt. And behind me is my home. There are various works of art, mostly done by my wife. And you get a little peek into the kitchen, which we cleared up before this session, so it should be okay. Okay, so I'm going to talk a little about what is social impact diplomacy. Hopefully it'll provide some inspiration for this very riveting talk. You can move to the next slide, please. I'm gonna, the question I'm putting forward is, what does diplomacy have to do with inclusion? And the points I put up are basically insights which we developed from experience, from empirical data, that led us to create 3 years ago the Social Impact Diplomacy Initiative. And as you said, Robin, I'm not aware of any similar initiative in any foreign service anywhere. I'd like to stand corrected. It would be great to develop a new cadre of diplomacy which goes beyond the things that we've done traditionally. So diplomats represent government, including the social equality ecosystem, which in Israel is quite expansive. We reflect society as diplomats, and that means everybody. We focus on strengthening all ties, not just political ties or commercial ties. We're posted all over the world, which means if you look at the various government ministries, you quickly reach the conclusion that we are the best place for best practice exchanges. And of course, assuming diplomacy is still considered a prestigious profession, we're professionals and we must set an example. And certainly inclusion is a part of that. And here I think it's before I move to the next slide, I think it's an opportunity, apropos, to say chapeau to our embassy to Austria for being so active on inclusion issues. Basically, it's not enough that I sit in headquarters and do what I do. We obviously need our missions abroad, and I think our mission to Vienna is a great example of that. Next. Of course, like any other foreign service, we're not just diplomats. We have students, we have support staff, administration. And it's been clear to us for a very long time that we need to sensitize and educate all the employees of the Foreign Service. And that includes the student administration hires, and we maintain close cooperation with government, other government ministries, towns, and NGOs to make sure that we are hiring, that hiring is also an inclusive process. I do most of my work out of the public diplomacy branch. And of course, for us, it's very important to make sure that our own platforms are accessible digitally to all, and we're working on that. A work in progress, I would call it. Within the ministry itself, recently we noted the International Day of Persons with Disabilities. And our building and our missions abroad were lit up in purple, which is the color associated with the inclusion of people with disabilities. That also received pretty broad media coverage. So obviously, we're tooting our own horn. The Israeli Foreign Ministry is identifying itself with this important goal. But I think when other people see it around the world, they also get a message. Within the ministry itself, we also had information stands and lectures to increase awareness. We've developed a unique educational software, and that's been disseminated both internally and to our missions abroad. And recently, we inaugurated a special photo exhibition about the inclusion of people with disabilities. That's still there. It was inaugurated by our foreign minister and also the Minister of Energy, who has cerebral palsy and is in a wheelchair, was also there. And it's still in the our entrance to the building. Next. Now, beyond the Foreign Service, obviously, if we're talking about preparing the next generation, so I would say that that the Israeli Foreign Ministry Cadets course is a drop in the bucket, really. Our civil service has a growing cadets course of its own. I would say today it's considered both prestigious and innovative. And like my own office, actively seeks to integrate people with disabilities, beginning with the recruitment process and going forward to the program itself. And the program includes in-depth study of disability policy in Israel and the various issues relevant to that. They, of course, will not be going abroad. And so these will be the young people in the civil service who will be interfacing with people with disabilities, will be catering to their requirements. And obviously they need to be very much up to speed. I would say that for us, we make sure that our own people, before they go abroad, are specifically trained to also best approach the issues that can arise. Now, just a word about Israeli law. Requires government bodies to employ at least 5% with significant disability. I would say, to be honest, that about 70% of government bodies already conform with that, at least at the intermediate level upwards. The law also stipulates the right to accessibility to public places and services. And overall, about 20% of Israeli adults characterize themselves as persons with disabilities, and that's out of a population of about 9.4 million. Within that, I would say there are about 57,000 people with disabilities who became put themselves in that category or became in that category as a result of their military service. Next. So I want to just
Yehuda, I would kindly ask you to wrap up in order to keep with time. Thank you.
Absolutely. So I'll end with this slide then. It's very important for our young people to learn, also to experience, and to be a part of the process. Because when that happens, they absorb and it becomes a part of them. So I think the campaign, the diplomatic campaign that we ran to get Adelia Fitoussi elected to the expert, a UN expert, as a UN expert to the CRPD, was a great case in point that happened in November 2020. That really aligned many of our young diplomats with the goals that we are discussing here today. So hopefully you take that with you. We think we're on the right track, and we know we have a lot of work to do. And I'm looking forward to hearing other people share their experiences and take that back home. Thank you.
Thank you, Yehuda. Hopefully you're hearing the claps here in Vienna. So I think your presentation was a fantastic segue into our next awardee, which comes from Chile and which has prepared and scaled a fantastic online accessibility training for civil servants. I think your speech was virtual and it underlines the need to have digital services and digital tools which help civil servants to become disability inclusion ready. And our colleagues from Chile have shown that it is possible. And therefore, I would like to call upon Jonathan Palacios and Javier González from the Ministry of Social Development and Family from the government of Chile to come in and present their Zero Project Awardee 2022 project.
Thank you, Robin. Good afternoon for everyone. Well, my name is Jonathan Palacios. Also, for those who cannot see me but can hear me, I'm a white man of almost 40 years with black and cool glasses, and sometimes I stutter. But well, I have hair, but not for so long. So I'm going to advise you. My daughter is possibly interrupt me in any moment because she's coming home from school and she loves to appear in that conference. So I'm warning you. Okay, well, I'm the head of the Intersectoral Coordination Section of the National Disability Service of Chile. We are very pleased to be here with you, and we send a warm embrace to the staff of the Zero Project and ESSL Foundation, as well as to its partner in Latin America, Descúbreme Foundation. We also want to greet all the initiatives that apply to the Zero Project 2022 calls for proposal in universal accessibility and congratulate those selected. We are convinced that we can learn a lot from other initiatives, and this space are valuable for our country. I will make a brief presentation with Javier González, who is an accessibility specialist and member of our team. Our initiative is called Ready to Include. which consists of a system of online training courses on universal accessibility for civil servants. You can access right now and view the 3 courses that are active in this address, academia.senadis.cl. You can see the courses and hear it. Next, please. Next slide. Thank you. We have a brief presentation agenda of 10 slides where we will address the social problem that gives rise to the training system, characteristic of the system, and its results. Next, please. What is the problem that we try to solve with this system? Close to 3 million people in Chile experience some level of disability. That is the 20% of the adult population. And they face significant accessibility barriers. For example, in 2 evaluations of accessibility to the architectural environments of public buildings, it was determined that only 12% of them comply with the minimum standards that established in regulations. In universal accessibility to receive people with disability. As well as in web accessibility, Senadis, that is National Disability Service, has a web accessibility guide based on WCAG guidelines, and in a survey that was made to public institutions by another government division, only 8% declare to have applied this guide. So we have low levels of accessibility in buildings and in public websites. Next, please. And what is Senadis? Well, it's a functionally decentralized and territorially decentralized public service whose purpose is to promote the right to equal opportunities for people with disabilities in order to achieve their social inclusion, contributing to the full enjoyment of their rights and eliminating any form of discrimination. Okay, so the National Intersectoral Coordination is a department of Senadis, and this function is create initiatives with other public service and private sectors too for improving the life of people with disability. Next, please. Okay. In 2016, Senadis present for evaluation of by the Ministry of Social Development and Family the Accessibility Program for Public Institutions, which is a social program that addresses the problem of public institutions do not have buildings and information system accessible to people with disability. In this way, one of its components is the promotion of accessibility, mainly addressing the lack of advanced human capital with knowledge and of accessibility in public administration.
A friendly 2-minute warning.
Our annual budget to generate accessibility assessment, web and buildings, and train public servants is about $150,000, and about 50% is dedicated to training in accessibility and inclusion. Next, please. So I'm going to pass the presentation to Javier González.
We have just 1 minute, I think, so I'm going to be very quickly. Ready to Include is a social program which is about to develop a training system on the civil servants. So the main skills we are developing here is what is disability, which are the rights of people with disabilities, which are the national regulations, and what is accessibility and how it works, among others main skills. So we have 3 courses right now, and we want to develop 2 courses in this year. So next, please. Our current course, it's about the right to universal accessibility basis of the building regulations. You know that we have this our national regulations in accessibility, so we are training people to understand the national regulations, to have buildings and websites accessible to all the people. Next,
Thank
please.
you, Javier. We would ask for some kind conclusion remarks from your end. Perhaps a takeaway for our audience from your project.
Okay, conclusion are in the last slide, I think, results. So currently we have more than 2,000 civil servants which are trained in this system online and absolutely free for every civil servant. So that's all, and thank you for your recognition.
Thank you, Javier, and thank you for your understanding. Hopefully you also hear the claps here from Vienna. And as a reminder to all our online viewers as well, all of these awardees don't happen in a vacuum here at the conference. All of this information is searchable, is accessible on zeroproject.org. So if Senadis and what they're doing captured your imagination, please head to zeroproject.org for further information. Talking about changing of mindsets, I am really privileged and honored to have awardee from Israel here with us, which have done and taken great strides to make legal services accessible, truly accessible for all. And here we have with us Efrat Stern, Idan Ilan, and Dr. Metal Segel-Reich, who will be telling us a bit more about this fantastic project, which is also, of course, a Zero Project awardee 2022. Without further ado, Idan, the floor is yours. Efrat, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Robin, and good afternoon here for everyone. So I want you please to meet Sarah, but in a minute, that my slides, okay, thank you. So please meet Sarah. Sarah, here she is 64 years old, and she has cognitive disability. Please try to imagine her attending a legal hearing about the appointment of a legal guardian, a hearing that will affect enormously her life. Imagine her meeting with her legal aid, lawyer, unfamiliar with the professional language. Imagine her entering a courtroom, not knowing the people in the room, what they're saying, or what any of this has to do with her. Now please meet Gabby. He's 65 years old. He also has cognitive disability. Imagine him becoming the victim of a crime and serving as a witness in a criminal case. Imagine him trying to explain to the public prosecutor what happened, or trying to understand the significance of giving a testimony, or even his rights as a victim. Now, on the other hand, imagine the public service lawyers who work with people with disabilities in their legal cases, who must understand both the needs and also the demands of people with disabilities and the legal system, so they can ensure real access to justice. What we would like to show you today is the bridge that we have built between people with disabilities and the public service lawyers. Without this bridge, access to justice or having effective role in legal procedures, as Article 13 in the UN Convention says, will remain as unrealized ideals. This is a bridge we have built together, the Israeli Ministry of Justice, JDC Israel Unlimited, and Israel Elwin. So hello again, everyone. My name is Efrat Stern. I'm the director of JDC Israel Unlimited. I'm a 46 female, white female. I have hair a little bit longer than my shoulders, and I have a brown jacket and a black shirt. Sitting with us in the audience our people from Israel Elwin, David Marco, thank you, and my colleague Idan Ilan, he is the head of the project department in the Israeli Ministry of Justice.
Thank you, Efrat. I will describe myself, so I'm still a young person, I think, 40 years old, blue shirts, and I choose my tie by myself, so I think it's good enough. In the few minutes we would like to present our award-winning program for accessibility of legal services for people with disabilities. We will talk about 4 stages in the program. The first stage was forming partnership. We brought all the relevant players to the table and discussed the needs and the challenges. The Israeli Ministry of Justice, which has the relevant knowledge and employs the lawyers who represent their state in all legal proceedings.
JDC Israel Unlimited, which works to advance independent and autonomous living for people with disabilities, and of course, people with disabilities, as their input is a cornerstone of our work. Next, we recruited Israel Elwin, a nonprofit promoting equal opportunities for people with disabilities. They serve as the operate partners in this program.
The Accessible Legal Services Program focused on 3 professional units in the Israeli Ministry of Justice: the State Attorney's Office, the Public Defense Office, and Legal Aid, all of whom handle criminal and civil cases that might involve people with disabilities and recognize the need for building this bridge. The second stage involved generating dialogue with the field. We listened to the people with disabilities and heard about their experience in the legal proceedings. We listened to the lawyers representing them and heard about the challenges and the complexities they face and about what might help them. After listening, we could identify the gaps that we wish to bridge in knowledge, in perception, and in language.
In the third stage, we began developing solutions and tools. This included tools and training sessions tailored for each unit to assist lawyers at the ministry to perform their duties in the best possible way when handling cases involving people with disabilities, with focus on people with cognitive disabilities, autism, and communication disorders. These tools and sessions reflect the extensive knowledge gathered by the Israeli Ministry of Justice and the deep understanding of what relevant processes are necessary to create an accessible legal system. These processes have already been adapted of many of today's service lawyers, and not less importantly, will be taught to the next generations of lawyers. We also developed a variety of accessibility tools. For example, a dictionary of legal concepts explained in a simple and adapted language, a training video for lawyers, a learning kit for handling criminal cases, a video on adapted advocacy from the legal aids lawyer's perspective, and of course, tools for people with disabilities themselves. We also conducted a training program for the designated disability officers in the different ministry units. The aim is to deepen their knowledge and to develop a shared professional knowledge throughout the ministry. These officers are the address which all ministry lawyers can turn with relevant professional questions. The fourth and the final stage was implementation. We conducted tailored training sessions for each unit with over 1,000 lawyers participating. I repeat, 1,000 lawyers. There was also more in-depth training programs for 70 disability officers from across the nation. Of course, like everyone here in the audience, the COVID pandemic began in the middle of the program, but we quickly adapted and moved to online trainings, which in retrospect allowed us to reach a broader audience. Alongside this, the tools we developed were embedded into the regular work of the ministry units. For example, when a prosecutor receives a case in which a person with disability is involved, the computerized case management system flags this and refers him to a kit that provides practical knowledge necessary for handling the case.
So, what's the next stage? The Israeli Ministry of Justice will now take over a full operation of the program with the goal of maintaining and developing the work in the different units involved and expanding the program to other units. We just presented to you an overview of a 3-year project in under 7 minutes. We described our partnership, our needs were identified, the tools we developed, and the training we held. But the main thing we would like to leave you with is the understanding that access to justice requires action. Ensuring equal rights in legal proceedings requires providing lawyers with the right tools in order to bridge the gap and the cope with the challenges we face. We believe that the process we had described can be implemented in any country and in any type of legal system to make the legal world truly accessible to people with disabilities and to provide them the justice we all deserve. Thank you.
Well-deserved applause, Efrat and Idan. Thank you for this very concise yet thorough presentation, which I think really hits the themes of inclusion, autonomy, and equality, something which the city of Sao Paulo has also developed with their wonderful 24-hour video sign language translation service for all of their public services. And we will hear from Secretary Silvia Grecco about what this entails. And as I've mentioned at the beginning of our session, she will be speaking in Portuguese. So I ask for your patience as she will narrate one slide in Portuguese, followed by the translation from our kind translator, Jessica Hornsey, who will then retell the slide in English. So we will proceed with a simultaneous slide-by-slide translation, Portuguese to English. And Secretary, the floor is yours.
Boa tarde, muito obrigada a todos. Eu sou a Silvia Grecco, secretária municipal da pessoa com deficiência da cidade de São Paulo. Sou uma mulher branca, com cabelos castanhos, na altura dos ombros, usando uma blusa bege, com colar dourado e com os branco e azul também nas minhas identificações. Tenho 59 anos, embora eu goste de dizer que eu sigo o que o meu filho, que é cego, fala que eu tenho uma aparência de 30, então eu prefiro me autodescrever como 30 anos, embora eu tenha 59.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Silvia Grecco. I'm the Municipal Secretary of São Paulo for People with Disabilities. I am a white woman. I'm wearing a beige shirt. I have brown shoulder-length hair, I wear glasses, and I am 59 years old, although, as my son, who is blind, likes to say, and I like to describe myself as well, I'm more like 30 years old.
Please, present. Next.
Could we get the presentation, please? Thank you.
A Secretaria Municipal da Pessoa com Deficiência da cidade de São Paulo, ela é responsável na articulação e execução e interlocução com as demais secretarias da cidade de São Paulo, com o objetivo de implementar políticas públicas efetivas para as mais de 800 mil pessoas com deficiência na cidade de São Paulo. Neste tema que nós estamos falando aqui, que é um público para todos e como formar uma geração de servidores públicos. E nós fazemos isso dando ferramentas e capacitando a todos aqueles que atendem a todos os cidadãos e cidadãs da cidade de São Paulo, e é sobre isso que nós vamos falar deste nosso serviço municipal que atende as pessoas com deficiência auditiva na cidade de São Paulo.
We are the Municipal Secretary for People with Disabilities of the City of São Paulo, and we are responsible for the articulation, execution, and interlocution in the City of São Paulo and other secretaries. The objective is to implement effective policies for the over 800,000 people with disabilities in our city, and we are forming a new generation of public servants with inclusivity in mind.
O nome deste serviço é SIL, que é uma central de intermediação em Libras, um serviço oferecido na Prefeitura de São Paulo, através da nossa secretaria, a Secretaria Municipal da Pessoa com Deficiência. Este aplicativo facilita a vida das pessoas com deficiência auditiva ao acessar os serviços públicos da cidade, como, por exemplo, serviços na área de saúde, educação, assistência, emprego, segurança, enfim, todos os serviços públicos da cidade de São Paulo. Através deste aplicativo, eles podem ter acesso a uma conversa que é feita com uma triangulação entre o servidor público, a pessoa com deficiência auditiva e o intérprete de Libras.
The service offered by the municipality of São Paulo is called CIL, Central de Intermediação em Libras, or Center for Intermediation in Brazilian Sign Language. Our aim is always to serve with the app helping to allow people with hearing disabilities to access public services such as the health sector, education, assistance, service, and accessing conversation translation via an app.
É uma solução de inovação e impacto para a comunidade surda da cidade de São Paulo. É um serviço gratuito que funciona com um aplicativo que pode ser baixado tanto nos smartphones Android e iOS quanto para computadores desktop. O serviço oferece acesso à língua brasileira de sinais, Libras, 24 horas para uso na comunicação com servidores municipais, estaduais, federais e equipes de serviços de emergência na cidade de São Paulo. O custo das videochamadas feito pelo aplicativo é subsidiado pela Secretaria Municipal da Pessoa com Deficiência. E é um importante recurso, pois uma chamada de vídeo pode consumir facilmente 100 megabytes do volume de dados.
Access to this service is provided via an app that can be downloaded on smartphones or via a desktop computer for video calls. This way, people with hearing disabilities can easily access Brazilian Sign Language interpreters, and intermediaries between civil servants act between the user. The service is also accessible to all citizens of São Paulo free of charge without using any megabytes or data, and is accessible 24/7 for services in the municipality, state services, and some federal services as well.
A comunidade surda, ela sente-se mais acolhida com intérpretes humanos do que com o uso de avatar. Então, por isso, nós desenvolvemos este serviço para que eles pudessem se sentir realmente mais acolhidos nessa interpretação. Para as pessoas de vulnerabilidade social na nossa cidade, que porventura não possuem um aparelho celular, eles podem ter acesso através dos postos de atendimento presencial, chamado PAPSIL, e lá também todos os serviços públicos teremos a oportunidade de ampliar e para que todos tenham também acesso através do desktop, onde o servidor público fará essa ligação para a central de intermediação de Libras para haver essa triangulação.
This service was developed specifically with the deaf civilians in mind, and for them to feel better attended with the human interaction. They feel more comfortable with this form of access and with this use of the service. For those who do not have access to a smartphone, they can access the app via any computer or via one of the numerous presential service points known as PAPSIL, and this can also be accessed by public servants.
Desde 2018, a comunidade surda tem acesso a este aplicativo. Já foram efetuadas, até o presente momento, 32.732 chamadas, cerca de 2.064 horas de serviços de videochamada. É um serviço de atendimento 24 horas nos 7 dias da semana. Foi também uma importante ferramenta na ocasião da Covid, porque tivemos um canal de informações a respeito de Covid, onde muitos usuários utilizaram para buscar essas informações relacionadas aos serviços de saúde do município de São Paulo.
Since 2018, our deaf community has had access to the app platform and have made 32,732 calls. This amounts to roughly 2,064 hours of video calls, and they have access to sign language interpreters 24/7. This was also very important in the last 2 years, as our channel has served as a COVID information platform for users to access information on public health.
O financiamento deste serviço, os custos da CIL, da Central de Intermediação de Libras, são cobertos pelo orçamento da Secretaria Municipal da Pessoa com Deficiência de aproximadamente 40 mil euros ano, 250 mil reais. O aplicativo é gratuito e para o usuário final. O modelo da Central de Intermediação de Libras já foi adotado por outros estados e cidades brasileiras e a meta a curto prazo é aumentar o uso do aplicativo em 50% dos usuários.
The financing of this service is performed by the Municipal Secretary of People with Disabilities of São Paulo, with roughly 40,000 euros per year. And the service is free for users and has served as a model that has also been implemented in other Brazilian cities. Our short-term goal is to increase use among users by 50%.
Pensamos nos próximos passos com este serviço e a nossa meta é ampliar para que todos os equipamentos públicos seja instalado o PAPSIL nos computadores, desktop, porque até o momento nós temos 282 equipamentos públicos, mas a nossa meta é que todos os equipamentos públicos na área de saúde, educação, cultura, esporte, lazer, todos os serviços do município possam ter este PAPSIL instalado para que todos possam ter a mesma oportunidade. Além disso, no aplicativo estará disponibilizado uma agenda cultural com as atividades acessíveis. Então, as pessoas que utilizam o aplicativo receberão mensagens dizendo da programação cultural da cidade de São Paulo e que terá acessibilidade para este público. E neste ano também já será utilizado em locais de votação na cidade de São Paulo, através do Tribunal Regional Eleitoral, para que as pessoas com deficiência auditiva possam se comunicar em qualquer dúvida que eles possam ter no dia e local de votação.
For the next steps, our goal includes expanding the number of presential service points to all computers in all municipal services. Currently, we have 282 installed, and we wish to expand that to all areas such as health, education, culture, etc. And we also plan to facilitate access to the city's cultural agendas so that users can be notified if there are any events, and so that people with hearing impairment can also take part in cultural events. Additionally, this year, just in time for the occasion of the Brazilian 2022 election, the service is also available for use at polling stations in case users with hearing disabilities have any doubts.
Este é um serviço reconhecido agora também mundialmente no Zero Project. E nós ficamos muito orgulhosos de participar dessa mesa e poder falar. O desafio é grande de tornar a cidade de São Paulo mais inclusiva. E este é um processo que nós pensamos sempre no lema de nada sobre nós sem nós. Então, para atendermos as demandas das pessoas com deficiência auditiva da cidade, nós ouvimos a todos os usuários para poder elaborar e criar este aplicativo. O desafio é grande, mas o querer fazer é ainda maior. E ainda é muito bom quando nós podemos contar com outras secretarias que trabalham em conjunto, com total apoio do nosso prefeito Ricardo Nunes. Então, eu acredito que aqui seja o momento de trocarmos experiências e fico muito feliz e agradecida em participar desta mesa tão importante, falando de um tema tão relevante, que, afinal de contas, as pessoas com deficiência precisam ser amadas, respeitadas e incluídas.
We are very proud to have brought this topic to a global table in the scope of the Zero project. And we can say that it is a great challenge to turn the city of São Paulo into a more accessible and inclusive environment. We always follow our motto, nothing about us without us. So we always listen to everyone in our city and in our community. So the challenge is great, but the will to do more and establish and normalize this inclusivity is even greater. And we count on the support of other secretaries as well to continue expanding. Thank you very much for allowing us to take part in today's table. This really is a great honor.
Grande obrigado, Secretary Grecco. I think we could listen to you all day in Portuguese. A beautiful language and an even more beautiful project.
Okay,
And what I would like to do in terms of time management and expectation management is first say that we will give our full attention to Tine Missinne, who I think will be able to nicely wrap up what we heard from mega cities such as Sao Paulo, to also say that work needs to be done on the municipal level. And this is something I think Tine Missinne and her organization has quite the expertise in. So we will let her give her presentation, and then I will press everything together in a condensed Q&A. And I will already give the question to those who have presented so they can think about it. And the question would be, if someone asks you, I like what you're doing, how can I do that as well? What is the one advice you would give them? So you have 8 minutes to think about that. And I'll let Jessica quickly translate the question into Portuguese. And then, as mentioned, our full attention is to Tine Missinne from Inter Vlaanderen.
Se alguém fosse perguntar, eu gostei muito desse projeto, como é que eu posso implementar esse projeto na minha cidade, qual é a dica que você daria? Uma dica.
Thank you for that, Jessica. And now, Tine Missinne, full attention, and the floor is yours.
Thank you for inviting me here. I'm a white female, past 50. I wear glasses, a black dress, and a red jacket. And my hair is full gray, thinking of accessibility, I guess. I'm working for Inter. Inter is the Expertise Center for Accessibility and UD in Flanders, Belgium. Our goal is to create an inclusive society for everybody to enjoy in all circumstances and independently. Our baseline is #iedereen overal, and that means everybody, everywhere. We assist governments, companies, and organizations in Flanders with their accessibility policy, and we connect governments, professionals, and users. We work on policy recommendations, we issue labels, we set up awareness campaigns, and we screen and advise buildings and infrastructure. We also make events such as festivals, cultural performances, sport competitions, accessible in cooperation with volunteers. Next, please. In 2017, we asked local authorities if they wanted us to develop a label for an accessible municipality. As you can imagine, this question led to interesting discussions. The conclusion at the end was that municipalities mainly need guidance on their long way to becoming an accessible community. We combined this answer with the finding that local accessibility policies for infrastructure, public space, communication, and services are mostly characterized by a problem-solving and ad hoc approach, goodwill or accidental involvement. Also, there is a lack of participation of inhabitants with disability and the elderly. In close cooperation with disability experts by experience, aldermen, and civil servants of 5 pilot communities, we first defined what an accessible municipality is, and we developed a framework for an integral and integrated local policy. Next one, please. This framework contains all factors that contribute to a strong accessibility policy. The left side, the green side, is about the approach. The right side, about the results and success factors. We first look at the role of those in charge. What do we expect from the mayor, aldermen, leading officials, the management team? Second, the challenges for civil servants. Next, what about strategy and goals? Means and partnerships. And last but not least, what needs to be done, or what are the processes that contribute to better accessibility? If you're interested in the content of the reference frame, you can find it in the information booth or ask me for it. Together with the pilot municipalities, we launched a charter that 31 cities signed already. Most of them appointed a coordinating official and started the quality process that is part of the charter. Yes, please. This process begins with a self-evaluation in an open, constructive dialogue between aldermen, experts by experience, accessibility experts from Inter, and civil servants. During the evaluation, each item in the framework is given a score for the present situation and a growth score they want to achieve. An action plan contains all efforts that are needed to achieve these goals. Let's look at this example of one of the Belgian charter cities. We discussed the need of a coordinating official, key figures, knowledge and motivation of civil service, and the input of experienced experts. The participants emphasized the importance of key figures and knowledge, and so building knowledge became one of the 5 priorities in the action plan. Next, please. Most action plans include the organization of training. This is a pre-corona training session in one of the pilot municipalities. Topics differ. We give training, for instance, introduction to accessibility and universal design, professional reception of citizens with disabilities, accessible events, accessible communication, regulation, heritage, sanitary facilities, accessibility of sports and cultural infrastructure, etc. Yes, please. We work tailored to the municipality and very practice-based. We start from the duties of the civil servant and look at how we can train by practice or through project supervision and advice. A familiarization moment is different for a reception officer than for a technical staff. When possible, we work together with citizens with a disability. Explaining why standards are used is an important part of our job. Yes, please. Over the next 3 years, with the support of the Flemish government, we will organize learning networks and develop a digital toolbox where local governments can find information, methods, and relevant examples of other cities. Also, we will make a job analysis for civil servants. What accessibility competences are required for each job. This will be integrated into the HR management. So what was innovative about this approach and what is the impact of it? Usually, disability experts by experience in local communities are only involved in standalone projects and or in a later phase. That's a shame, because a lot of relevant input is missed. We conduct a close collaboration between aldermen, experts by experience, accessibility experts, and civil servants in designing this policy framework. They work together and learn from each other. We saw that accessibility gains importance in governance agreements, strategic policy plans, processes, and procedures. There is more attention for accessible communication and service. There is a raised awareness that accessibility is more than just accessible infrastructure, and more actors feel involved. Thank you. Zero.
Zero. Zero indeed, but you know, Tina, the advantage of being the last session of the day is we get to go over zero. Because not only is this starting time more convenient for our friends in North America and in Latin America watching, but it also gives us a bit more time to answer the question I posed before, and I'll pose it again to all of you. If someone were to approach you here at the Zero Project Conference and say, I very much like what you're doing, how can I do it? What is the one thing you would tell them? So the key takeaway for both our in-person audience and our online audience. And I think I'll ask the Secretary Grecco perhaps to answer first. And as mentioned, she'll answer in Portuguese. And then Jessica Hornsey, our very great translator, will translate for us in English. Thank you.
Uma dica importante, né? Quando nós falamos em acessibilidade, nós temos que pensar na acessibilidade, lógico, arquitetônica, comunicacional, atitudinal e também a acessibilidade digital. O mundo de hoje, ele é digital, então nós temos que investir em tecnologias para garantir a acessibilidade digital para todos, aí nós estaremos quebrando barreiras e dando essa oportunidade para todos. Então, quanto mais nós oferecermos essas tecnologias, investirmos nessas ferramentas, mais inclusão nós teremos e pensando que antes da deficiência vem a pessoa. E a pessoa, como sujeito de direito, ela precisa de oportunidades. Então, o investimento em tecnologia assistiva hoje faz parte do mundo e eu acredito que seja o ideal para que nós possamos incluir cada vez mais as pessoas com deficiência no mundo.
So a very important tip when we're speaking about accessibility, of course accessibility exists in architecture, communication, attitude, and also in the digital world. And as the world today is very digital, it's important that we invest in digital software to begin breaking barriers. So investing more in technology will allow us to achieve more success in inclusivity for people with disabilities in all areas. What they need most is opportunity, so doing so will give them more opportunities in this world.
Thank you for that, Secretary Grecco. I'll now ask on Dr. Sigal Reich. What is the takeaway if I ask you, I want to do what you are doing? What is the one thing I should know?
I'll give you a quick 4-step program. It will be very quick, very summarized. The first step, I believe, is to identify the unit you want to start with. Every dream has to start somewhere and to spread around, but it has to start, and you have to find the unit that has the best experience with people with disabilities, that meets people with disabilities the most, and that can take this on itself as a mission, as a task. The second thing will be adaptations. Take our program. It is a proven program. It already worked in Israel. Take our program and make the adaptations you need to your country, to your legal system, to your governmental system. The third thing, which is very important, we found out, is partnerships. You have to create the right partnerships between ministries, between the ministry to other ministries, between the ministry to organizations, and just work together. That creates the best social impact. And the last thing I would say is preservation of knowledge. That's a very important thing, to preserve the knowledge so you keep it on for the next generations to work with in the future.
And if you ask me, step 5 is to get in touch with Idan, Efrat, Meital, and Anat, and this is very easily done through a Zero Project database, so zeroproject.org. Search for the project which you saw today in this session. We have a contact button, and they look forward to hearing from you. I'm not going to make them shout out their email address. Instead, go to zeroproject.org and look up the project and get in touch with them. And then, last but certainly not least, we'd love to hear from Tine Missinne and her one takeaway if someone would like to replicate and emulate what Inter is doing.
I should say, copy the framework, we did already the work, and make the translation to your own situation, to the organizations you're working with. And I think one of the success factors was a triangle approach. So I would say copy this to the interaction between aldermen, experts by experience, civil servants, talk to each other and learn from each other. Thank you.
I think on that note, again, a round of applause for our speakers who've come from very far. It's something which doesn't go without saying. You know, these are long distances, and very thankful for the commitment you make also to come here in person. And I think to recap, Civil for All, we showed that there are municipal frameworks in Belgium. There are 24 hours app services for the hard of hearing in the city of Sao Paulo. There is legal services accessible for all in Israel. It's not a wish, it's not an aspiration, it's a reality. So Civil for All, we have the tools. Reach out to these individuals, reach out to these organizations, start replicating, start emulating. That is what we are about at the Zero Project. And this concludes day one of the Zero Project Conference 2022. Thank you, everyone. It's been a pleasure, and good night.